Hi, I'm Mohsen, and I'm so excited to welcome you to The Seeking Soul. This podcast is a space where we explore topics like philosophy, spirituality, and literature, often from perspectives you may not have encountered before. As someone who grew up traveling, I've had the privilege of witnessing the deep similarities between cultures and people, even when mainstream narratives focus on what divides us. As an Iranian American, I've always felt to share the beauty, wisdom, and lessons from my Eastern heritage with my Western community, and vice versa. My hope is to be a bridge between these two worlds, fostering the sense of oneness and unity. With the help of AI, this dream feels more achievable than ever. Using documents and notes, I've provided with the link of the sources in the description. Along the way, you might encounter ideas that feel new, challenging, or even uncomfortable, and that's okay. That's the purpose of this space, to listen with empathy and approach every perspective with love and curiosity. Welcome to the Seeking Soul. This is the fifth episode of the Seeking Soul podcast. Today is 20th of March, which is the first day of spring. In Persian society and culture, this day is called Nowruz, which is translated to New Day. In this episode, the expert talks about how Nezami Ganjavi's poem, who is a renowned romantic poet from Iran, can be used as a great source in our New Year resolutions. I've also included a biography about him in the uploaded documents for additional review. Without further ado, enjoy this short podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive. And today we're diving into a really fascinating topic, Nowruz, the Persian New Year.
Pronounced Nowruz, right?
That's it. So many people probably think of Nowruz as just, well, the start of a new year, turning the page on the calendar. But digging into these sources, it became clear that there's so much more to it.
Yeah, I mean, every culture has its own unique spin on New Year celebrations. But it sounds like Nowruz has some pretty deep themes of renewal, personal growth, things like that woven in.
Exactly. So our mission today is to kind of peel back those layers, go beyond just the festive side of Nowruz, and really understand what makes it so significant, so meaningful.
I'm game. Where do we start?
Well, right off the bat, the speaker and the audio recording, they launch into this really grand view of like existence itself. You know, where do we come from? Where are we going? That kind of thing.
Deep stuff. Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's presented as this idea that everything originates from and it ultimately goes back to this single source. And of course, that source is described as God. So it's pretty profound from the get-go.
Wow, starting with the ultimate big picture, huh? That's an interesting framing for what follows, setting the stage for everything else, in relation to that source.
Right. And they bring you this quote from Nezami, a Persian poet, who says that this source is both the beginning and the end of everything. And there's this powerful line, before you there was nothing.
Whoa. I mean, talk about going all the way back to square one. I guess that makes everything that follows, every idea, every celebration kind of flow from that starting point, right?
Yeah, that sense of a complete cycle. And then the speaker uses this really beautiful analogy. They describe this spiritual journey as like this quest for a beloved who isn't home.
Oh, that's lovely. So we're kind of wandering, searching, trying to find our way back to that original love, that source.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And the audio emphasizes that our intellect, our ability to think and understand, plays a huge role in this journey. They specifically highlight, let me get this right, ilm, knowledge, and marifat, wisdom.
So it's not just blindly wandering around hoping to bump into the source. It's about actively using our minds, our understanding to find our way back.
That's exactly it. It's an intentional journey guided by knowledge and understanding, not just aimless drifting.
Makes sense. So what's the ultimate goal here? Is it to gain something specific from this source, or?
Not quite. The speaker emphasizes that the beloved, this source, is cherished for its own sake. It's the love itself that's important. And very significantly, they point out that God is the ultimate destination, ila al-muntaha. And the guide explains that this means essentially to him is the final return.
Wow. I see how this really lays the groundwork for everything they're going to talk about with Nowruz, this whole idea of coming from a single source and striving to return to it.
Yeah, it's a powerful foundation. And that's where the focus shifts to the significance of spring and, naturally, Nowruz. The way nature revives after winter, the greenery comes back, flowers bloom. It's all presented as this amazing symbol for something much deeper.
I can see that. Spring's always felt like a time of new beginnings, but you're saying it's more than just a feeling. It's tied into this whole idea of spiritual resurrection.
Exactly. The audio talks about the dead coming alive and connects it to the idea of a day of judgment. It's as if nature itself is giving us a little demonstration of death and renewal every year.
Interesting. So it's a reminder that's always there, always playing out around us. We just have to open our eyes and see it.
And the Nowruz breeze, it's not just a change in the weather. It's more like a symbol of hope and the potential for new beginnings.
Okay, I can see that. So it's not just about spring coming back. It's about our own potential for renewal that comes along with it.
Right. And this is where it gets really cool, I think. The speaker challenges us to ask ourselves, what personal breeze do we need in our lives to truly flourish? What needs to change? What needs to be renewed within us?
I love that. It's taking this natural phenomenon and turning it into this really personal question. It's not just about observing what's happening outside. It's about looking inward and figuring out what we need to personally spring back to life.
I thought that was really powerful. And then the speaker points out something that, well, I've definitely felt before. They say that some people, even when they're young, they feel old if they haven't experienced some kind of spiritual awakening.
That's so true. Like, age is just a number, right? If you haven't grown, if you haven't experienced that inner blossoming, you can feel stuck, stagnant, no matter how many birthdays you've had.
Absolutely. So Nowruz isn't just about passively accepting the arrival of spring. It's about actively engaging with our own need for personal rebirth.
Makes sense. So we've got this foundation of existence, the symbolic power of spring. But what about the practical side of things? Does the speaker offer any guidance for actually stepping into this new year?
They do, and they really emphasize embracing the new year as a year of planning. The speaker literally tells us to write down our plans and get really clear about our ultimate goals.
Okay, so not just fuzzy ideas floating around in our heads, but putting pen to paper, actually making a plan.
Exactly. It's about commitment, taking those goals seriously. And the speaker is adamant about having written plans for all areas of life, not just one or two.
So it's like a holistic approach to planning, encompassing everything from our daily routines to our long-term dreams.
That's it. And they tie this to the idea of simplifying our lives. Consciously reducing our needs, getting rid of stuff we don't really need, freeing up our time and energy.
It's like a decluttering, but not just for our physical space. It's also decluttering our mental and emotional baggage, all those commitments that weigh us down.
I like that. Mental and emotional decluttering. By getting rid of the excess, we make room for what really matters.
Yeah, and what matters, according to the speaker, is making time for personal growth, our relationships, engaging with art and music, things that feed our souls, and of course, our spiritual practice. It's about creating a life that reflects those ultimate goals we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's a proactive approach to living, shaping our lives, instead of just letting them happen to us.
I like it. It's empowering. Now, there was something in the notes about inner transformation and how it connects to beauty. That seems kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah. This is where the speaker introduces this concept of beautification of existence. What they're saying is that the world around us is a reflection of our inner state.
So if we want to experience more beauty in our lives, the first step is cultivating beauty within ourselves. That classic as within, so without idea.
Exactly. Focusing on the beauty of our thoughts, our words, our actions, even how we see ourselves, that's where it all starts.
And then there was this slightly unusual suggestion using hidden cameras, like for self-observation. The idea is to become more aware of our own habits, maybe things we do unconsciously that might be blocking that inner beauty.
Right. It's like catching ourselves in those moments when we're not really paying attention, seeing those ingrained habits that might be holding us back.
So Nowruz is the perfect time for this kind of deep inner work, this conscious effort to nurture beauty from the inside out.
And then, it's not just about cultivating the good, but also about actively removing the negative. The speaker talks about expelling devils and inviting angels as part of the Nowruz renewal. Pretty vivid imagery, right?
Definitely. It's like a spiritual spring cleaning. And the devils we need to kick out, well, they're pretty relatable. Envy, greed, that's ego and self-importance. And of course, anger.
That's quite a lineup. Envy, greed, ego, anger. Yeah, we've all wrestled with those at some point. It's like clearing out the toxic waste from our inner world.
Exactly. And in their place, we're supposed to invite the angels. So things like forgiveness, kindness, and this was a little unexpected, smiling. They describe smiling as an angel that wanders through the home.
I love that. Smiling is an active force for good. And the speaker also really emphasizes letting go of grudges, nurturing love. It feels so fundamental to any kind of true renewal.
Yeah, it's about consciously choosing to create a positive internal environment, letting go of what's weighing us down and embracing those qualities that lift us up.
Definitely. Now, the speaker also names this new year as a year of wisdom, a Salidanai. And they place a huge emphasis on learning, especially through reading. What kind of books do they recommend?
Well, the first suggestion is pretty clear, the Quran. Even if you don't understand Arabic, the speaker suggests reading it in Persian and really taking the time to mark passages that resonate with you personally.
So it's about a deep personal engagement with the text, not just reading it for the sake of it. But it's not just religious texts, is it?
No, the speaker also encourages immersing ourselves in classical Persian literature, specifically works by Sa'di like Bustan and Golestan, and the poetry of Hafez and Rumi.
Those are some big names in Persian literature. And what's really interesting is the speaker presents Persian literature as a form of interpretation of the Quran, a tafsir Quran.
That's a cool way to look at it. So it's about drawing wisdom from both religious and secular sources, but the key is to really delve deep into them. The speaker advises focusing on deeply understanding a few books rather than just skimming through a bunch of them.
Right, quality over quantity when it comes to seeking wisdom. Now, this next part really resonated with me. The speaker talks about shifting our focus from simply trying to be happy ourselves to actively trying to make others happy.
That's an interesting distinction. It's about going beyond our own pursuit of happiness and actively trying to bring joy to those around us.
That's it. And what's cool is the speaker suggests that we can actually draw inspiration, almost like raw materials, from the happiness of others and use that to create more happiness in the world.
I never thought about it like that, but it makes sense, doesn't it? Joy can be contagious, It spreads.
Absolutely. And the speaker says that this outward focus on making others happy can lead to a deeper sense of personal fulfillment.
It's like that saying, the more you give, the more you get. And this ties into the idea of generosity of existence, sharing our good intentions and goodwill with others.
I like that. It's about consciously contributing to a more positive, joyful world.
And finally, the speaker ends with this powerful message about personal transformation and how much impact one person can have in the world.
Yeah. No matter how small or insignificant we might feel, if we're committed to being our best selves, embodying those good qualities, it can have a ripple effect.
And the speaker brings in the story of the prophet Ibrahim and his call to the Kaaba, even though he faced incredible opposition, to illustrate how powerful sincere intention can be.
And then there's that quote from Shakespeare's Richard III about how all that worldly stuff, possessions and power, it's all fleeting. It's a nice contrast to the idea of spiritual growth, which has a much more lasting impact.
It's a good reminder that true value isn't found in what we accumulate, but in how we grow as human beings.
Right. And then the speaker introduces this idea of a baptism of love, which is like a renewal of our identity as servants of God, a recommitment to embodying divine qualities in our lives.
That's beautiful. And then there's that saying about the self-absorbed ascetic, the one who's quick to judge others but oblivious to their own flaws.
Right. It's a reminder that the real work of self-improvement starts with looking inward at our own shortcomings and not getting distracted by what everyone else is doing wrong.
And then the deep dive ends with this really inspiring call to action, drawing on imagery from Hafez's poetry about purification and leaving a positive mark on the world.
It's about striving to become that individual who embodies the change we want to see, starting with ourselves.
Wow, that was a lot. We covered a ton of ground there.
We did. Nowruz is clearly so much more than just a new year on the calendar. It's a time for profound renewal, touching on every aspect of our lives. Our spiritual connection, our personal goals, our inner world, our relationships, and our impact on the world.
It's a holistic celebration for sure. And after this deep dive, I feel like we have a much richer understanding of all those interwoven themes. This idea of existence as a cycle, the power of renewal, the importance of planning and introspection, cultivating beauty within ourselves, letting go of negativity, seeking wisdom, prioritizing the happiness of others, and recognizing the potential we each have to make a difference.
That about covers it. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. What's one positive change you could commit to this Nowruz? Something that could ripple outwards and create a real impact, a kind of echo of goodness in the world around you.
That's a powerful question to ponder. It's about taking all this insight and turning it into action.
Exactly. Thank you so much for sending in your sources and joining us on this deep dive. I hope it's given you some things to think about.
Take care.